So let's imagine that you're a student, which most of you probably are, and let's say that in a given work week, you have 20 hours to complete your schoolwork. So 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and we'll draw that right here. 20 hours per week. And in that week, you can allocate those 20 hours to complete two types of schoolwork. And the first one is you can read your textbook to study for midterms, and I'm going to title that with a C. C for chapters. And the other type of work you can complete is your assignments. So I'll title that with an A. And let's say that if you devoted all your time to just working on assignments, you'd be able to get 4 assignments done. So draw that right here. 4. And because you're spending all your time doing assignments, you won't have any time to do chapters. And I'm going to just break this into a T-chart right here. Okay, so now on the other hand, let's say the same student, as the example above, didn't want to spend all their time working on assignments because they want to study for their midterms. So they decide to complete 3 assignments, so 1 less assignment. So we'll go to 3. Oops. 3 assignments. And with the extra time they have from completing 1 less assignment, they're able to read 5 chapters. And if we keep moving down this T-chart, the student has the option of completing 2 assignments, so 2. And using the extra time from completing, again, 1 less assignment, they can use that time to read another 3 chapters. So they would have time for 8 chapters. 8 chapters. And without rambling on, I'm just going to complete the rest of this T-chart. So if the student does 1 less assignment, they have time to read 10 chapters. So 1 and 10. And if the student doesn't do any assignments, they have time for 11 chapters. So 0 and 11. So now I'm going to plot these points on a graph. But before I do that, I think it's important to understand what these output combinations are. So these points are different output combinations using the same inputs. So again, each of these combinations are all different ways to allocate your 20 hours. And depending on how you allocate them, you can get different combinations or different levels of work done. And they're also a perfect or optimal allocation of your resources. So if we use all of our 20 hours perfectly, keyword there is perfectly, to complete our work, these different combinations are the most we can possibly get done. So let me draw them on a graph now, and that will hopefully make things a little bit more clear. So I'll put assignments on the y-axis, and we'll go up by 1. So let me draw that right now. And I will also put chapters on the x-axis, and we'll go up by 2s, but let me first label the y-axis. So 1, 2, 3, oh, it's a little bit far, 3, and we'll say 4. Not exactly perfect, but again, just trying to get the idea across. And on the x-axis, we'll go up by 2, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. So if we plot all the points from our T-chart, we can begin to see what our production possibilities frontier will look like. So we'll take our first point right here, 4, 0. And that is, sorry, I forgot to label the x-axis. So let me go back and do that. So this is A for assignments, and this is C for chapters. So our first point is 4, 0, which will be right about here. And the next point is 3, 5, which is right here, roughly. And the next point, 2, 8. So 2, 8, say is right here. And then 1, 10. And then 0, 11. And the final thing we're going to do is draw a line connecting all these points, because we can actually have any output combination between any of these points. For example, you can have, I don't know, let's say 3.5 assignments and 3 chapters done. So right here. So it doesn't have to be whole integers like the ones I've listed. I just chose them because I think it's easier to understand. But just know that the blue line, which I'm going to draw right now, so right here, going through all the red dots. So this blue line represents the student's production possibilities frontier because it shows all the possible output combinations they have given their 20 hours to do work. And there are a couple of key ideas you want to understand about the PPF. So the first is that any point along this blue line right here is considered efficient. And the reason these are efficient is because they represent points where the student completed the most work they possibly could with their time. So in 20 hours, this is the largest amount of output or largest amount of work they can complete with those 20 hours. Or, put another way, these points represent the maximum output the student is able to produce given their available inputs. So those two statements are saying the exact same thing. The second way is just a little bit more generic in terms of describing what efficiency is. But on the other hand, any point below or inside the blue line represents the opposite, in that these points are considered inefficient. So I'll use a highlighter to highlight the fact that anywhere below, so I'm not getting perfectly close to it, but you get the idea. So any point in there is considered inefficient. And if you take the point, let's say 2, 3, which is below the curve, you can see that the student should have either completed 2 assignments and 8 chapters, or 3 chapters, and we'll say 3.5 assignments if they were being efficient with their time or getting the most work done they could with their 20 hours. But moving on, the last thing you need to understand about the PPF is what points are impossible. And these points are anywhere beyond or to the right of the blue line. So again, I'll highlight that. So in here, right. Okay. And because, as we said earlier, anywhere along the blue line, so this blue line again, represents the largest or most efficient output possible given our inputs. So anything beyond the curve, like the point, we'll say 1 assignment and 12 chapters, would be impossible to do because, again, in 20 hours, if this student was doing 1 assignment, the most they could possibly do is 10 chapters. So anything, 1 assignment and 12 chapters is impossible given 20 hours, but also any point beyond that blue curve is the main takeaway.